You've shared something with us, and it's incredibly difficult, this silence from your children. It's more than just quiet. It's feeling unheard and unimportant and like betrayed by those you poured your life into.
Yeah.
We're here to help you kind of dive deep into this topic of estrangement.
Yeah.
We've got some insights from experts on family dynamics and healing that might shed light on why this hurts so much and why forgiveness feels impossible right now. And ultimately, we want to give you some real actionable steps that you can start taking to feel better.
Right.
So
it's fascinating how the parent-child bond is so powerful, and when it fractures, the pain cuts deep.
yeah,
Especially when you don't have a clear understanding of why.
right.
You know, it's not just missing their presence, it's feeling completely disregarded by the people who, in theory, should matter the most.
You've poured so much love and dedication into your children, yet you're met with silence. It feels like a complete disconnect, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you mentioned your ex-wife and your deceased mother.
Yeah.
Adding to this complexity,
Yeah.
making your children's actions even harder to grasp.
Absolutely. Those external influences, whether intentional or not, definitely add layers to this situation.
Yeah.
They contribute to this tangled web of questions. Who said what? Why are they acting this way?
Right.
These unanswered questions just leave you feeling even more lost and alone. And when you try to communicate to bridge that gap and still nothing but silence, it's as if you don't even register with them anymore.
It's like you've devoted years to building a life for your children, making sacrifices, being there for them, and now it feels like it means absolutely nothing to them. You're left with this overwhelming sense of injustice.
That feeling of injustice is completely natural. You crave control,
Yeah.
especially in a situation as personal as family. But the truth is, we can't control the choices of others,
Right.
even our own children. And it's this lack of control that fuels that feeling that life just isn't fair.
You've also shared that this situation has shaken your sense of self, your identity as a parent.
Yeah.
It's like everything you thought you knew about yourself and your role in their lives is being questioned.
Yeah. That feeling of being dead to your children speaks volumes. Estrangement can be a huge identity crisis. It's not just a lost relationship, it's a challenge to who you are at your core.
Yeah. It sounds like you're grieving the loss of a relationship you thought would always be there. And on top of that, the concept of forgiveness feels so daunting. It's like you're being asked to forgive a complete upheaval of your world.
Forgiveness in this context is about letting go of the pain that's consuming you, not about condoning their actions or pretending nothing happened.
Right.
Imagine it as releasing the chains of anger and resentment and hurt so you can start moving forward.
So it's not about saying it's okay or forgetting about it.
Bro,
It's about taking back control of your own emotional well-being.
you got it.
Okay.
It's a shift in focus. Instead of demanding justice or understanding, you prioritize your own healing. And that's a powerful first step in a situation where you feel powerless.
You mentioned that your ex-wife and deceased mother add to the complexity of this situation.
Right.
How do they play into this already difficult dynamic?
Family dynamics are rarely simple. The past always finds a way of weaving itself into the present.
Yeah.
The actions and influences of your ex-wife and your mother, whether intentional or not, have shaped the dynamic with your children.
Yeah.
It doesn't excuse their behavior, but it provides context. That can help you better understand why forgiveness feels so impossible right now.
So where do you even begin to untangle these threads?
Right.
Especially when those involved aren't open to communication.
Sometimes instead of searching for this grand solution, you have to shift your focus inward.
Okay.
It's about understanding your own role, your own emotions,
Yeah.
and finding ways to heal and move forward, even if others aren't participating in the process.
You're right. Life can feel incredibly unfair, especially when so much feels outside of your control. How can someone cope with that feeling when it comes to their own children?
Life is a series of events, and we can't control every single one. That's true of relationships as well. They're messy and unpredictable.
Yeah.
We pour our hearts into them, we invest our time, and yes, sometimes we end up hurt. We miscommunicate, we misunderstand each other, and sometimes we simply fail to meet each other's expectations. It's part of being human.
So you're saying this experience, although incredibly painful, it reflects the reality of relationships,
Yeah.
the inherent imperfections we all carry.
It's a tough pill to swallow, but yes.
Yeah.
Recognizing the shared imperfection that we all make mistakes and hurt each other can be a starting point for compassion, not just for those who have hurt you, but also for yourself.
That's a different way to look at it. So if we acknowledge that life can be unfair and relationships are messy, where do we go from there?
Right.
What are some practical steps you can take to start feeling better?
That's where we shift gears from understanding why this hurts so much to exploring what you can do about it.
Okay.
And often the first step is the hardest, turning your focus inward.
So instead of trying to fix the situation with your children, you're saying the priority should be taking care of your own well-being.
Think of it like putting on your own oxygen mask before helping others. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Prioritizing self-care, seeking support from a therapist or counselor, and engaging in activities that bring you joy and peace are essential.
Can things like exercise, meditation, or spending time in nature really make a difference when you're hurting this much?
They absolutely can. It's about nurturing your emotional and mental health.
Okay.
Giving yourself the space to grieve the loss of the relationship you envisioned with your children, and ultimately rediscovering who you are outside of the parent role that's causing so much pain right now. Imagine writing a letter to a friend going through the same situation. What words of comfort and support would you offer? Now apply those same words to yourself.
That makes sense, but it also sounds like a long and difficult journey.
Healing isn't linear. There will be good days and bad days, but by focusing on self-care and seeking support, you're building a foundation for healing.
Yeah.
You're taking back control of your life and finding peace amidst the chaos.
So even though the situation with your children might not change, you can still find a way to be okay.
More than okay. You can thrive. But it starts with taking care of yourself, acknowledging the pain and making a conscious decision to move forward with intention and compassion. It's a powerful shift.
That leads perfectly into the next part of our deep dive, where we'll delve into more concrete actions you can take.
We've talked about the immense pain you're experiencing, the sense of injustice, and the impact the situation has had on you. Now let's explore some practical actions that you can take to navigate this challenging time.
Okay. We're shifting gears from understanding the problem to finding solutions. What's the first step in this what now phase?
One of the most powerful tools you have is the ability to set boundaries. This isn't about giving up on your children. It's about protecting yourself from further hurt. Think of your boundaries as a protective circle you create around yourself. This circle allows you to love your children without being constantly hurt by their choices.
But how do you set boundaries when the other party isn't even engaging? It's like trying to have a conversation with a brick wall.
You're right. It's incredibly tough. But think of boundaries as your own personal safe space. It's a line you draw in the sand to protect your emotional well-being.
Okay.
It could be limiting contact, choosing not to engage in conversations that are hurtful, or even stepping back from certain family events. For example, if they do reach out and it turns into a blaming session, you can say something like, "I understand you're upset, but I'm not willing to have this conversation right now. Let's talk again when things are calmer."
That sounds incredibly difficult, especially when you're longing to connect with your children.
It is difficult, but it's also a powerful act of self-respect. It sends the message that you're not willing to tolerate certain behaviors, even from those you love. And sometimes that act of self-respect can be the catalyst for change. One of my clients, who was in a similar situation with their son, started setting firm boundaries. It took time, but eventually his son started to understand that his behavior had consequences, and he began to reach out in a more respectful way. It's not a guarantee, but setting boundaries can open the door to healthier communication down the road.
So boundaries aren't about shutting them out permanently. They're about creating a healthier space for interaction if and when it happens.
Exactly. It's about shifting the dynamic from one of constant hurt and disappointment to one of self-respect and hopefully mutual respect over time.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do you handle the emotional turmoil, the constant questioning of what went wrong, and the feeling of being stuck in this cycle of hurt and confusion?
This is where self-compassion becomes vital.
Okay.
Imagine a dear friend going through the same thing. You wouldn't blame them, would you? You'd offer kindness and understanding. Yeah.
Self-compassion is about extending that same grace to yourself.
So instead of dwelling on what you could have done differently or blaming yourself, you're suggesting a more gentle, understanding approach.
Absolutely. Acknowledge the pain. Allow yourself to grieve the loss of the relationship you once had, and remind yourself that you're doing the best you can in a truly challenging situation. You're human, and you're allowed to make mistakes.
Are there any specific practices that can help cultivate this self-compassion?
There are many. Journaling is one. Write down your thoughts and feelings without judgment. It's a way to process your emotions and release them from swirling around in your head. Think of it as a safe space to vent, to cry, to scream on paper. You can even try writing a letter to your younger self as a parent, offering the advice and support you wish you had received. Another helpful tool is mindfulness meditation. Even a few minutes each day can help you connect with the present moment and calm those anxious thoughts.
So it's about allowing those feelings to surface without getting swept away by them.
Yeah.
Learning to ride the waves instead of drowning in them. That's a great way to put it. You're learning to become an observer of your thoughts and feelings rather than letting them control you.
You've also mentioned writing letters, even if they're never sent. How can that be helpful in a situation like this?
It can be incredibly cathartic. Imagine having a safe space to express everything you need to say without fear of judgment or interruption. You can pour out your hurt, your anger, your love, your longing. You can even write to your ex-wife or your mother. Sometimes just getting those feelings out on paper can bring a sense of relief.
So it's like releasing pent-up emotions.
Yeah.
A way to let go without causing further damage.
Exactly. And you might be surprised by what emerges as you write. You might uncover patterns in your thinking, unresolved issues, or even a deeper understanding of your own role in the estrangement. It can be a powerful tool for self-discovery.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about the bigger picture? How do you rebuild your life when such a significant part of it feels broken?
That's where rediscovering meaning and purpose outside of these strained family relationships becomes so important. It's about reconnecting with your passions, nurturing the relationships that bring you joy, and exploring new avenues that spark your interest and bring you fulfillment. It's about creating a life that feels full and vibrant, independent of the current situation with your children.
So things like hobbies, work, friendships, they become even more important during this time.
Absolutely. They serve as reminders that your identity and worth are not defined by this one relationship.
Yeah.
They provide a sense of purpose or reason to get up in the morning. It's not about replacing your children,
Right.
but about rediscovering yourself and creating a life that feels meaningful regardless of their presence or absence. You deserve that.
It sounds like forgiveness in this context is about finding peace within yourself, even if the circumstances with your children don't change.
Yes, it's about recognizing that true peace comes from within. It's about letting go of the need to control or change others and focusing on your own healing and growth. It's about accepting what is and choosing to move forward with grace and intention. And sometimes, in that act of letting go, you open yourself to possibilities you never imagined.
You mentioned earlier the importance of professional help,
Yes.
particularly family therapy. Is that even a possibility when your children aren't open to communication?
Family therapy can be incredibly beneficial,
Yeah.
but it does require a willingness from everyone involved.
Right.
However, even if your children aren't ready or willing to participate, individual therapy can be incredibly valuable for you.
Okay.
It provides a safe and supportive space to process your emotions, develop coping mechanisms, and create a roadmap towards healing. It's a place where you can be completely honest about your pain and your struggles without judgment.
So it's not about giving up on the possibility of reconciliation, but rather recognizing that you can only control your own actions and your own healing.
You got it.
Okay.
And sometimes that individual healing can create a ripple effect, inspiring positive change in unexpected ways. You never know how your own transformation might influence those around you.
It's easy to get caught up in wanting to fix the situation, to make things right with your children.
Yeah.
But you're emphasizing that the most powerful changes often start within ourselves.
It's true. We often seek external solutions, but the most profound transformations happen internally. It's about shifting your focus from trying to change others to embracing your own healing and growth.
It's like by taking care of your own emotional well-being, you're building a stronger foundation to weather the storms of life, even one as difficult as estrangement.
That's a great analogy. It's not about denying the pain or pretending it doesn't exist.
Right.
It's about choosing to heal, to grow, and to create a life filled with meaning and purpose. And that journey begins within.
This leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, forgiveness. Not just for those who have hurt you, but for yourself.
Forgiveness. It's an essential element of healing, yet often the most difficult to grasp. We'll explore that further in the last part of our deep dive.
We've covered so much ground already, from the rawness of your pain to practical tools like self-care and setting boundaries. Now let's tackle that final and often the most challenging piece.
Yeah.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness is often misunderstood, isn't it?
Yeah.
People think it means condoning hurtful actions or pretending the past didn't happen. But true forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you.
How can someone even begin to think about forgiveness when they feel so deeply betrayed by their own children? When every fiber of their being is screaming for an apology, for recognition of the pain that's been inflicted?
That feeling is so valid, and forgiveness, especially in a situation like this, it's a process, not a light switch you flip on.
Right.
It starts by understanding that forgiveness isn't about giving them a free pass. It's about reclaiming your own peace of mind. It's about choosing to no longer be defined by the hurt and anger that's been holding you captive.
So it's about releasing yourself from that burden.
Yeah.
But how do you even start when the wounds are so deep, when it feels like everything you invested in this relationship has been thrown back in your face?
It begins with small steps, tiny acts of letting go.
Okay.
Maybe it's choosing not to dwell on a hurtful memory today, or consciously replacing a thought of anger with a thought of compassion. Remember, forgiveness is a journey, not a destination.
You're talking about radical acceptance, right?
Yes.
Accepting that you may never receive the apology or understanding you so desperately crave. That's a tough concept to grapple with.
It is, and it's okay to grieve that loss. The loss of the relationship you once envisioned, the loss of those hopes and dreams you held for your children.
Yeah.
But radical acceptance allows you to acknowledge that reality without letting it consume you. It's about recognizing you can't control their actions, only your own response to them. It's about finding that sliver of peace within yourself, regardless of their choices.
Many parents in this situation blame themselves.
Yeah.
They question everything they did, every choice they made. How can the listener begin to forgive themselves when they feel like they failed as a parent?
Self-forgiveness is often the hardest part, isn't it? We tend to be much harder on ourselves than we would ever be on anyone else.
Right.
But think about it this way. You were doing the best you could with the information and resources you had at the time. None of us are perfect parents. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And holding on to guilt and shame only keeps you stuck in the past.
So how can someone start to release those feelings of self-blame?
Imagine holding two heavy suitcases. One is filled with resentment toward your children, and the other is filled with all the ways you blame yourself. Now imagine setting those suitcases down. That's what self-forgiveness feels like. It's a conscious choice to let go of the weight you've been carrying for so long.
As we wrap up this deep dive into estrangement, what's the most important message you want our listener to take away from this conversation?
Healing is possible, even in the face of profound hurt and loss. It's a journey that requires courage, self-compassion, and a willingness to embrace the complexities of life and relationships. It's about finding that quiet strength within yourself to let go of what you can't control and focus on what you can, your own healing, your own growth, your own peace.
You've given our listeners so much to think about. The why, the how, the what now.
Right.
It's about taking these insights and creating their own unique path forward.
We've explored powerful tools like self-care, setting boundaries, finding support from a therapist, practicing self-compassion, and ultimately embarking on that journey of forgiveness. And remember, forgiveness isn't a sign of weakness. It's an act of incredible strength.
We've covered a lot of heavy stuff today, but as you move forward, remember this. Healing is not about erasing the past.
Right.
It's about transforming it into a source of wisdom and strength. If you could send one message to your children that they were guaranteed to hear and understand, what would it be?
Yeah.
Hold on to that message. Let it guide you as you navigate this challenging time. Remember, even in the darkest of times, there's always a spark of hope. Choose to nurture that spark, to believe in your own resilience, and to embrace the possibility of a brighter future.
You are not alone, and you are stronger than you think.
This has been a difficult but important conversation. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.
We wish you strength, peace, and ultimately healing.
This is DigitView.